A few more days passed, and Luca was sitting on a stump outside of Taylor's castle. It was mid-afternoon. He knew Taylor and Gregory were sleeping. He wasn't sure where Bryn had gone off to. He kicked a rock that was close by and let out a frustrated growl.
"Magic isn't easy,"
someone said. Luca turned to see a man with strikingly good looks. The man looked like he could get any woman he wanted. He stood just over 6 feet tall, and his black hair was cropped short and fanned forward. His eyes were a vibrant golden brown. Luca's hair on the back of his neck began to rise. His instincts were telling him to run, but for whatever reason, he couldn't.
"How do you mean?"
Luca asked.
"To be honest, I didn't know you were Celtic,"
he said, ignoring his question.
"Pity, really."
Luca didn't like where this was going. Before he could even get up, the stranger whirled around him and pinned him to his chest. His one hand wrapped tightly around his throat, tilting it. Luca could feel the stranger's breath on his neck. He felt the fangs scraping his skin. This was a vampire, and if he was in daylight, this was Abraxas. Luca tried to pull away, but it was useless. Abraxas seemed to have much more strength than he did. He felt Abraxas' fangs sinking into him, felt his own blood bead down his neck. He felt Abraxas feeding from him, and he felt the pain that came from being fed from. Before, Bryn had distracted him. This time was much more painful. He could feel his consciousness slipping as Abraxas continued to drain him. He couldn't find his voice to call for help, and even if he did, he doubted anyone would hear him. He felt Abraxas lowering him to the ground, felt his heart beginning to slow down, heard his breathing become ragged. He was going to die here, and there was no one that could help him. The last thing that he saw before everything went black was a figure coming out of the trees and knocking Abraxas away from him. Luca woke up with a start. His head began to throb, and he could hear voices. Someone was trying to push him back down. He attempted to fight with the stranger, but the stranger was too strong. His vision was blurred from throbbing of his head. He tried to use his sense of smell, but all he could smell was dried blood. His blood.
"Why wasn't anyone on guard?"
he heard Taylor snarl.
"I don't know,"
someone answered.
"I talked to patrol and they said everything was clear."
Luca figured from that comment that Abraxas had used some sort of barrier to blind the patrol to get to him. What confused him more, however, how did Abraxas know who he was? Had Hazley given in to him and gave him all the information about him? Was that part of his plan?
"You all are idiots when it comes to Abraxas,"
someone else growled.
"You're in my territory, boy. I don't care if you are the head vampire. This is my land,"
Taylor snapped. Luca realized one of the strangers was Lucas. Was he the one that had saved him? He must have been if he was talking about Abraxas.
"You got some nerve coming here anyway,"
he heard Gregory growl.
"Oh? And I suppose it would have been better for my sister to lose her mate?"
Lucas growled back.
"Not what I meant, and you know that,"
Gregory snapped.
"All of you enough,"
he heard Bryn hiss.
"Help Luca first, fight later."
"There's not much I can do,"
Gregory sighed.
"Abraxas was trying to kill him, but failed."
"Obviously."
"Because of you, he's infected,"
Gregory hissed.
"Being converted is far better than being dead,"
Lucas hissed back. Infected? Converted? Had Lucas's intrusion caused Abraxas to infect him? Was he going to be some sort of hybrid like his uncle? A mix of werewolf and vampire? Though the thought seemed interesting, but it wasn't what Luca agreed to. He didn't want to have to survive on blood. He liked being a werewolf, even if the only time he could shift was on a full moon.
"Guys, enough,"
Bryn sighed. Luca could hear the pain and concern in Bryn's voice. He had the sudden urge to want to comfort her, but whoever was holding him down refused to let go. He wondered if he was changing right now, and that's why they were pinning him down. As soon as that thought crossed his mind, his body began to burn.